Listeners, it is always one of the most dramatic competitions of the year. Every year, it does not fail to disappoint. CHIO Aachen is done and dusted. The SAP Cup is decided. Rosie, how are you feeling? Always quite a rollercoaster.
It is. And I think I forget how much of a rollercoaster Aachen is because I go into it and I know it's going to be eventful. But it's not until that cross-country day that you really do feel like you've been in the tumble dryer for 3 hours and you come out and you're like, wow, what was that? But it's so exciting. I absolutely love it. I don't know how you keep up with the maths.
The maths, I always feel quite under pressure with maths. I'm not going to lie. There is a certain degree of do not mess it up in the split second that you have to figure it out. But touch wood, all came together, so it was fine. I think that's a really interesting point, though, because we talked about it a bit on the preview show and indeed took until the end of the preview show, which, listeners, if you stuck with us the whole way through, thank you, because it was a mighty one. But actually, the excitement this year coming into Aachen, everything felt a little bit different because obviously the Olympics are on the horizon. We didn't really know who was going to be running. Some teams hadn't quite sent their sort of championship squads as we would have seen in previous years. Last year we had the likes of Yaz and Banzai de Loire and Tom McEwen and JL Dublin, and the US team obviously sent all of their big hitters as well. And this year it wasn't quite like that. But actually, I think it gave a different level to the story in some ways. And it was almost a tale of two different stories. But then there was the real effect, and we'll talk about the effect of it, that is going to really influence what is happening in Paris in a few weeks' time. So first of all, let's deal with, I guess, the threads that lead into the Olympics, because the big news, he was the big favourite on the prediction centre. Michael Young, Fisher Chipmunk FRH, did a 22.5 dressage, led from the front, did a lovely clear show jumping around in the stadium on Friday. There were some rather frantic messages going around on Friday evening saying he's withdrawn. And basically, he just elected to actually save the horse for Paris in a few weeks' time and didn't run cross country. So we didn't have to speculate as to how quickly he would go. It meant that both Dee and I predicted he would win, and by a margin. I like to think that could well have still happened if he had have run. But I think the bit that stands out for me is actually he was beautiful in the show jumping, but his dressage, 22.5, there were lots more marks left in that arena, particularly with his holts that other nations are going to be looking at ahead of Paris thinking, okay, we've got a real game on our hands.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, they've got a few weeks now to do the final touch-ups and preparations. There was a lot left in the arena, still scoring 22.5. So, I mean, if the touch-ups all happen, and obviously it's Michael Young, so of course he's going to be working very hard. Paris could see some mega dressage score there. That could be very, very exciting. But it's all got to come together on the day, which is a lot easier said than done, even with Master Michael.
Master Mickey. We can coin him all sorts of new nicknames. He honestly, he was brilliant in both phases. I was very impressed with him. But his dressage in particular, don't get me wrong, I actually thought he deserved to be leading, and he did deserve the 22.5. But there were more very notable marks that would be coming his way if he'd kind of nailed all the things that he would normally nail. So look, watch this space in the next few weeks, but we'll kind of park him to one side for now. He was an individual, so he didn't affect the German team score in the SAP Cup. Let's talk about the eventual winners, because they were second after dressage. They were the closest challengers to Mickey. Everybody else was more than a fence back in equal third. Julia Krajewski, Nicole 21, Julia, who won here back in 2018, had one of the best dressage tests in Aachen eventing history, actually, a 19.8, I want to say, off memory, or 19.6. It was very, very low. 19.6 was the record. I think she did 19.8 or something with Chip back in 2018 when she went on to win. But Nicole 21, 23.9 dressage, lovely test, beautiful clear around in the show jumping. And actually, he went cross-country pretty early on. So the nature of Aachen's draw, which makes it so exciting, it has to be said, is that they do all of the individuals first, and the individuals come forward in kind of the order in which they have been drawn in the competition as a whole. And then they do the team riders in reverse order of teams. So the fourth best team score for each team goes first, then the third, then the second, then the first. So the team goes right down to the wire. But it meant that Julia kind of went out on course quite early and actually kind of did what she had to do and was kind of the leader in the clubhouse for a while. And it was a little bit anticlimactic in a way from her perspective, because actually she just then had to sit and watch and wait for what must have been the longest 2 hours of her life.
Yeah, you're right. Like, She was probably just there. I say chilling, probably not chilling, probably quite anxious, watching the scoreboard. But because she went so early, I did wonder, right, are we going to have our leader confirmed straight away? Is she going to be close to that optimum time? You know, only 2 riders were inside that optimum time. Is she going to cement her lead very early on? But she had the 6.4 time, which was still fast because it's Aachen and not many people made the time. So she slipped down the leaderboard a little bit, but that put the pressure on everybody else. And that's where Aachen comes to life, where you mentioned that reverse order format, that it does build pressure. And we saw mistakes slip in at the end. And she was just class from start to finish, Julia was. And just what it means. I love there's a video of her being announced as the winner, the tears, and the owner as well looked absolutely delighted. It just showed what an Aachen win means to everybody.
Yeah, the Russell family were living their best life in Aachen this weekend. And actually, Julia said it in the press conference, and she said it as well, the kind of, because it was unexpected to her, perhaps, you know, we all kind of, she was very much on the radar, but unexpected to win from her perspective, it's made it even more special. Whereas when she went with Chip in 2018, they would have been hot favourites to go very well. And so I think she felt actually she could enjoy it a little bit more. Nicole, it's almost like the Olympics has come 12 months, 6 months even too early, because he isn't overly experienced. He stepped up to the 4-star long level last year, but he's done very, very little wrong. He had a fall at Buccolo, which was really unlucky. He was one of those that sort of launched into the water and just didn't get his landing gear out. And there were a few that had a similar problem there. And other than that, he's been pretty flawless. I really like him. I think he's not necessarily got the kind of the X factor that you would look at this stage in his career. I should hasten to add, you look at London 52 and he's got this sort of big flash and he's very kind of look at me. Nicole kind of goes about his business and just does it in a really lovely way, doesn't do a lot wrong, and it is very, very sweet person. And actually all of those ingredients together give him a really, really strong performance on the field.
Really reminds me a bit of Amanda Benneville vibes, in the sense of, you could say the similar thing about her is she didn't have that X factor as such of like London 52. She's still very impressive, but didn't have that wow head turning. And I think that's why she almost stayed under the radar a bit. But when they're consistent and then can go out and produce the results that they are both producing, that's where they're going to go and succeed.
Can I share? I had a great dream last night, Rosie. Like, I woke up this morning, and you know when you've had a dream and you think, did that happen? And then I was like, of course it didn't happen. But I had a dream. I'd obviously been talking about Aachen and talking about Nicole quite a lot, that Julia had let me have a ride on him.
Wow.
And I know. And it was lovely. Like, I can actually remember in my dream the feeling of what it would be like. But then I remember, because obviously the news that broke yesterday, as we're recording this on Monday, it's going to come straight out for you listeners, but the news that broke yesterday was the German team was announced, and she had climbed up into that 4th spot. So you've still got Michael Young, Fisher Chipmunk, Sandra Awful, Farman to Mats, Christoph Waller, Karyatan S. We'll kind of touch on them in a little bit later on, but they're your 3. And then there had previously been kind of a second group, which included Marlin Hansen Hottop and Jerome Robinet. And then the next group had probably 6 or 8 athletes in it, which included Julia. This was after Le Moulin German National Championships. And so Julia has kind of leapfrogged that after this very, very impressive win, because it was a very impressive win in Aachen this week. And so is now the number 4 for the team. And I remember saying to her, I was like, but you've just been selected for the Olympics. Is it all right that I ride him? I'm not going to ruin him. And she was like, no, go for it. Anyway, it was great, listeners. So I can thoroughly recommend a dream ride on Nicole.
I hope one day that becomes a reality for you.
I mean, maybe if after it does, the Olympics. Rosie, then I might see a pig flying by a few seconds later. It would be amazing. I don't think it will. Right. That was the big news, that Julia actually, not only did she win Aachen, but she also won a spot on the German team. And you just kind of have those vibes, don't you? Because it was 3 years ago in Tokyo when Amanda Bonneville wasn't selected. She wasn't meant to be part of the German team. And then, unfortunately, things didn't quite go to plan. I think it was Ingrid Klimke that came out. And all of a sudden, she's in there with a chance of being in the reckoning, and then she comes home with Olympic title. So watch this space, listeners, over the next few weeks. Not that you want anything to happen to anyone else, but it's a position she's been in before. And she did a really good post, actually, of people keep asking her if she's disappointed to be number 4. And actually, the answer is no. She's delighted to be in with a chance. She's ready to step up, and she's very eloquent, Julia, and has a lovely way about explaining things. And you just actually really root for her. So Nicole 21, Julia Krajewski, the new Aachen champions. Where do we go next? Let's stick with the individuals for now. Then we'll come on to the team competition, because Calvin Böckmann, the Phantom of the Opera, 12th after dressage, they produced one of those clear rounds inside the time cross country. There were only 2 of them. The other one came courtesy of Chris Burton, who we'll come on to in a moment. I have to say, double clear for this horse. And he took the horse out to Kentucky in the spring. And it's not often we see a German combination necessarily competing at the 5-star level so much now, Rosie. But he showed every single bit of class here this weekend. And he's trained with Julia for a few years. She's based at Werendorf, as is he. She's been a big part in his career as well. And it felt really quite special that they were the 1-2.
Yeah, a lovely one too. And I think it's all really coming together for Calvin and Phantom of the Opera. They had that minor blip in Kentucky, but it was just a minor drive-by. And I think this weekend is where it all merged. And what a consistent combination I think they're going to be for the future. Can't wait to see them on German teams, because I think they're going to be, once they get more established, I think they're going to be a real banker combination, because my gosh, can't this horse jump?
Oh my gosh, anybody listening will remember perhaps that stride out he took going into the head of the lake in Kentucky. He absolutely launched. But he just looked so much fun. And I think Calvin rode him cross country beautifully, but really did enjoy the challenge of the optimum time and a bit of a racetrack of a course, and the horse relished it as well. And between them, they came home 2 seconds inside the time. But actually, some rounds you can watch and they look like they're going really, really fast.
Yes.
And it can sometimes feel a bit uncomfortable, but it didn't. They looked like they were having a great time, and they looked like they were really enjoying the test that had been set. So 1-2 for Germany. Laura Collett, best of the Brits, Dacapo in 3rd. He was just living his best life all week with the Aachen crowd that he thought had come just to visit him. And we're actually going to skip over them slightly, only because, listeners, we're actually going to hear from Laura herself a little bit later on in the show. So we will go direct to her as to kind of her Aachen weekend. But just I guess a point, Rosie, from your perspective, there are some horses that go to Aachen that absolutely love the atmosphere. They love the environment. They love the kind of the challenge in the test, and in the way that other horses might go and be a little bit overawed by it all, there are horses like Dacapo that go and think everybody has turned up just for them.
He looked like he had a smile permanently on his face in every single phase. And Laura, exactly the same. She was absolutely loving it. And I think it's so lovely that they found the level that he's happy, comfortable, and can excel at, and can just go and shine. So they've had a 2nd at Aachen. They were 3rd this weekend. I'd love to see them go back next year and take the top spot. 1, 2, 3. They've completed Aachen, but I think it's definitely a venue he loves.
I think Laura would love that as well. She definitely would. Okay, Chris Burton, Clever Louis. I mean, quite frankly, it's like he'd never been away. 32.1 in the dressage, actually was 20th after dressage, so had a bit of a climb up. Eventual 4th place, but he jumped a lovely clear round in the show jumping. And his round cross country, which was very near the end of the day, and sort of the Australians had fallen by the wayside in terms of the team competition in the SAP Cup at this stage. And he just cruised round, Rosie, and just like 3 seconds inside the time, beautifully judged, no drama. I don't know what everyone else was going so slowly for.
He was absolutely incredible. And I really hope that he stays. I don't know what his plans are after the Olympics, but I really hope he stays in the sport. I know probably won't, but oh my gosh, isn't he fantastic to watch? I'm smiling watching him. You have just so much confidence in him and his ability, and he's just such a top class athlete to be able to be away from the sport for so long and then come back and produce what he produced, and still, to ride at that pace around the cross country. after having a bit of a break, not an easy thing to do.
No, not at all. And actually, just to put it into context, so he secured his 7th round inside the time at Aachen in the cross country. Only one other rider has had the same amount. Nobody else has had more, and that's Ingrid Klimke. She's also on 7, so he equaled her inside the time record. But in terms of finishing on your dressage score, that is kind of it's the goal, isn't it? Always, of course, it is in eventing, and it's much easier said than done. It's not something that we see at Aachen very often. I think from what we've had, there have been 695 starters at Aachen. 19 have finished on their dressage score. I mean, that is not many, quite frankly. Chris Burton has now done it 5 times. He did it Holstein Park Leilani 2013, Nobilis 18 2017, Quality Purdy 18 and 19. She did it twice, and then obviously Clever Louis 2024. So 5 times he has done it. Ingrid has done it 4 times. But even so, I mean, he's just a machine.
It really is magical what he can produce and have his name again on that list of FODs. It's really his highlight, and I can't wait to see him in Paris with Shadow Man. I think he's going to be a real contender, especially on a course that needs pace.
I think that time is going to be really interesting in Paris because 9-minute track, but everybody kind of keeps talking about the fact that it is going to be quite intense. It's going to be much more of the sort of short format feel, perhaps, than we would see at a traditional 5-star like Badminton or Burghley. And if the time is really, really, really tough, then you're going to look to somebody like Chris Burton to really capitalise on that. Right, let's go on next to Emily King, because she was equal third after dressage, jumped a beautiful clear in the jumping. And actually, Rosie went out as the last on course, which we have seen so many Aachen hopes and dreams dashed from that pressure position. But she dealt with it brilliantly.
I thought she rode so maturely, because you're right, that's such a hard position to go out in Aachen. So many people have struggled or crumbled under that pressure. She rode really, really maturely. She knew that she had to do well for the team to win, because the team competition was so tight. And it's also hard not to think, okay, well, you could go for it and also win it individually. I thought she rode with maturity. She really rode positively. She went for it. She picked up 4.8 time, but it was a superb round from an individual point of view and for the team.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's one of those things, you put yourself in a position to win Aachen. Any competitor will want to win Aachen, but you also, it comes down to that knowing actually what you've got to deliver at that moment in time. And the team was obviously a big part of that. The horse had never been to Aachen before. And so while he's very experienced, it's a different atmosphere. It's a different sort of course. It's not a badminton. So I think Emily first groomed for her mum at Aachen many years ago. She said that I think she just kept disappearing off to watch the show jumping, but the Aachen dream has been alive for a good while. And so it's nice to see it kind of come to fruition and go really, really well for her. So she sort of backed up the British team as well. And it's interesting, we'll hear from Laura Collett later on in the show, but how much kind of filters through to the riders in terms of what they've got to do, and it all happens so quickly that actually you've kind of got to keep your head in the game and go out there and not be swayed too much about what's happened to other people in other teams, and really just go out and ride for yourself and for what is in front of you. Right, Laura Delida Kirkemeyer, the rise and the rise and the rise of possibly Belgium's, Europe's, eventing's most lovely competitor is just continuing, because Ducati Darville and Amani Darville both jumped beautiful double clear rounds, finished in 6th and 7th respectively. It's actually Origi that she has been selected with for the Olympic Games. The Belgian team was announced just after Aachen. Amani is a direct reserve. Ducati actually isn't on the Olympic list. She's also got Uni as a direct reserve as well. So she's spoiled for choice, if you like. But I just think it goes to show, confidence, doesn't it, Rosie? Like, she is riding the crest of a wave and thoroughly enjoying it and thoroughly delivering.
She's absolutely flying, and quite rightly so, because, I mean, as fans, we all love her. She's been through some real tough points and is now coming out the other side. and excelling. And the string of horses that she has, she's not just doing this on one horse. The string that she has is so, so competitive, and it's all down to her hard work. And I think she was one of the first out on track with Hermione, and it just looked flawless. She made a tough track look very, very easy indeed. So, hats off to her. She's absolutely flying, and I cannot wait to see her in Paris.
Oh, I think she's got a whole legion of new fans as well. Lots of people jumping on the Lara de Liederkerke bandwagon. So 2 for her in the top 10. So they were the 2 Belgium individual rides, because obviously Aachen is invitational, which is why you don't see it entered like a normal event. Leah Siegel van Helsing P, who, listeners, mind to remind you, put up as a dark horse on the preview show, patting myself on the back right now, finished 8th. And she had a pole down in the jumping, which was quite unlucky. She was 5th after dressage, and she'd have been frustrated with that. Ultimately, on the final leaderboard, it only cost her 1 place, which... or is it 2 places? No, 1 place. That's all it cost her. So actually, frustrating, but not the end of the world in the final rundown of numbers. I want to go to the US team actually, because we'll come on to the Brits in a little bit more detail, perhaps in a second when we go to the third rider for them. But the Americans, they came over 12 months ago with kind of the A team. They had the likes of Will Coleman. They had Liz Halliday and Mixed Master Philip Dutton. They had Tammy Smith and Mybaum, and they absolutely delivered, and they finished second. They had 3 of their top riders inside the top 6, just missed out on the win in the SAP Cup by an absolute sort of margin of point something. It was really, really, really close to Germany. But they came here this year with a slightly less experienced team, very much kind of looking to give riders experience in Aachen. We've obviously got the Worlds here in a couple of years, other riders at home preparing for the Olympic Games. And all 4 of the team riders delivered really, really strong performances, led by possibly my favourite new horse crush, because James Alliston's Karma is just such a cool mare. She got a 36 in the dressage, which I'm just going to put it out there. I thought she deserved more. I think there was a bit of a difference of opinion between some of the judges as well. And then a really, really cool double clear and just picked up a couple of time faults cross country. So she led the US challenge. They went on to finish second in the SAP Cup. Alyssa Phillips was 14th, and then Liz Halliday, Shanro Cooley was 16th. Cute Girl for Hallie Kuhn actually had a problem late on in the arena and ended up down in 30th, but also looked very, very competitive in the first couple of phases. The bit for me, Rosie, that stood out though, is they were 7th after dressage. However, 4 clear rounds in the jumping going into Aachen Stadium on Friday evening. I mean, that was a huge, huge performance, and it clawed them all the way up the leaderboard to 3rd.
They were incredible. And I totally agree with you with Karma. Watching her jump, listeners, if you've not done it, go back and watch her jump, because she is incredible. But I think that
she's so smiley, isn't she? She just looks
honestly,
like she's having the best time. She's great.
She looks amazing to jump. Smiley is a perfect way to describe her, actually.
Listeners, if you don't already, actually, I've got two things for you to 2 people, horses, for you to follow on social media. So whoever runs Alliston's, James Alliston's, and I think Helen, his wife, it probably is Helen, actually, thinking about it. Their social media accounts are just brilliant, because you can just get such a feel for what Karma's character is like. Basically, everybody is there to serve her and make her look beautiful and feed her treats. And it's just lovely. But also, if you're a Tim Price fan and you love Girillo, like I do, whose weekend didn't quite go to plan, Girillo _not_so_official. So Girillo not so official, like Tim Price not so official, has his own Instagram account now. Well worth follow.
Well, I'll be following them as soon as we're off this call, because I love them both. But on this podcast, we've talked so much about strength and depth and everything of the US and how they're on this upward trajectory. And I think in Aachen, it really proved that is most definitely the case. They have strength, which we already know, and now they've got depth, which is just as strong. And I think it's just such an exciting time for the Americans, because their A and their B team is seriously strong.
Yeah, it just fills more with confidence, doesn't it? And success breeds success in lots of ways. You're putting in good performances week in, week out. There's, competition for places. There's competition to go over to an event like Aachen, the team will be selected. And that conversation happened off the back of the selection for the Olympics. The selectors were all in a room. They had a healthy old discussion, probably a debate at times as to who would be going to Paris. Then they took a break and then they came back in and started the discussion for Aachen. They'd gone through quite a rigorous process to get to this point. And really, really exciting for the US team to finish in the team silver spot. I'm just going to shout out Team Ireland, who took their third podium at Aachen. They finished third twice before. I think 2016 they did it, and 2021 they did it. Also finished third again this time. Ian Cassels was best of the Irish. Milridge Atlantis looks like such a cool horse for him. Only a 10-year-old, and was part of the Nations Cup team that won in Mill Street. Backed it up with a very good clear round cross country here, just one pole down in the show jumping. As did Joseph Murphy Calmaro, who we went pretty heavy on, D&I, in the preview show. He's been to 3 Aaachens. He's been inside the top 10 on 3 previous occasions. He's 12th this year. So 4 Aaachens, never out of the top 12. It's not bad form. He's not going to be complaining about that too much. And I thought the Irish, of course, backed up with a brilliant third counting score from our very own Sam and Ballyneatic Rocketman, who lived up to his name and thoroughly looked like he enjoyed his cross-country spin. I think they, again, are another team that are really sort of proving that they've got horses knocking on the door of selection that aren't necessarily in the team right now.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really exciting time for Ireland. Another team that had a bit of a climb after the dressage and jumping. They were 5th after dressage, 5th after the show jumping, climbed up to 3rd on the cross country, where they really did just excel. So, no, this team competitions is getting so, so exciting. I love it.
I just want to pick up on the Australian team who sort of fell by the wayside slightly, jumping penalties for Goat Oscar, Andrew Barnett and Andrew Hoy, Cadet de Belliard. The New Zealand team similarly, shout out to Ginny Thomason, who was best of the Kiwi team, Capitan de Oos. It was her first Aachen. She did really well to finish top 20. Janelle Price, Senor Crocodillo, had a super, super spin cross country, bar 20 penalties at that really tough technical JCB combination at 10, where you had that sort of, you jumped up onto the Normandy bank, one stride, then the fence on top was the A element, and the skinny brush down at the bottom that Sam, when talking to him, said it was basically the skinniest fence you will ever see in competition. They can't get much skinnier than that because you're just not going to fit through it. Just had a really unfortunate glance off there. But I would say she still came home with 10 time faults, and actually she would have been, I think, one of the quicker rounds of the day, and that would have seen her in a really competitive position individually. Girillo, again, was one of the last out on course and had a late 20, just coming through that combination that you go through just before you come into the main arena, and the horse just couldn't quite make the distance. And actually Tim turned a circle and got a penalty, and then he took a long route in the main arena. And it was really sweet, actually, because the German crowd, Girillo just went a little bit tired, and possibly, he'd be quite an extravagant jumper. But I think for some of these younger horses, you go to Aachen, there's so much to look at, there's so much to think about. Everything is so thick and fast that it's mentally very, very tiring as well. But the German crowd, when he jumped out of the water in the main arena and he went to take the long route, were all cheering, and it was very sweet. There was great horsemanship from Tim, and I have absolutely no doubt that the horse will be back on another occasion pretty soon and be right at the business end. And like I say, go and follow him on Instagram, because I don't know about you, but I have a proper horse crush.
Yes, he's very, very handsome, I must admit.
Okay, and the horse is all right as well, I know. Tim, you're great. We love you. Right, moving on to, I want to mention actually just quickly for the German Olympic team. So Christoph Waller, Cayetan S were 3rd after dressage, beautiful clear show jumping round, and actually retired cross country when cruising round. It was very much a German team plan. They pulled up after fence 15, I think it was the ditch combination with the owl hole, and the eagle wings, as it was this year. They pulled up there and had looked very classy to that point. However, Sandra Orforth, Weimar Dumats, who were sub 30 in the dressage, another very good clear jumping round. That horse is a very, very good show jumper. again, having a final run pre-Paris. And it felt to me, Rosie, I don't know what you think, that she set out very quietly, bidding to give him, a nice steady run cross country. And he had a drive-by at that really influential JCB bank fence. But almost sometimes when they're used to going quickly and they're used to being competitive, they can switch off a little bit. And for me, that's what it looked like. He just didn't quite fire. And then the moment that had happened, she sort of picked him up and rattled the reins slightly and said, right, come on, off we go. And he seemed to respond much, much better for that.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because obviously they're thinking ahead to Paris and things like that, trying to save them. But you're right that if they're used to being rode fast, they go out with that mentality of, yes, we're going out, we mean business. And if you go out slow, sometimes they can just kind of zone out a little bit. I'm sure that we've all done it as humans, whereas horses do exactly the same. And sometimes, though, it may be annoying for Sandra, I'm sure it is, but a sharpen up before something big like the Olympics does no harm. It makes sure that everybody's on their A game on the main day.
I am going to put it out there that for me, the German team, by far the biggest threat to the Brits for Team Gold.
Yes, 100%. I totally agree. They look classy this weekend, seriously classy. And I think it's going to make Paris very, very exciting.
It's also the pressure cooker of Paris was sort of getting kind of inside intel coming back. We spoke to Dickie on the show a few weeks ago, and that was a really interesting kind of British eventing show building up to Paris as well, and kind of what we know about it. The time is likely to be pretty intense. You've obviously got the 2 rounds of jumping on the final day, which you want to be sat on a good jumper for if you're in the sort of hunt for an individual medal. And I think the German team are going to be extremely, extremely strong. I won't lie. I don't want anything to happen to any of the others, obviously, but I'm quite sad that if Julia stays as number 4, we won't get a chance to see her try and defend her title. It would be a big ask, but even so.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there.
Right. Rosie, highlight from CHIO Aachen. What was your standout?
Very hard because there was some very, very class combinations. However, for me, I'm going to say Chris Burton, clear inside the time cross country of Clever Louis, the way he punched the air when he finished and how excited he looked. I was smiling and, I was just watching. I just love seeing him back. And I love seeing that, it's like he's never stopped. It was brilliant.
We're going to have him on the show in the next couple of weeks, listeners. So we will be hearing all about his kind of jumping and then the journey back into eventing, and obviously a big couple of weeks coming up for him and the team heading into the Olympics as well. So we'll get the insight from him. For me, I think it is probably riding a little bit on the back of what was a brilliant Lamoulen, 2 Lara de Liederkirchen rounds inside the top 7. She was just riding with so much confidence, and I would say again, if you haven't heard that show that we did with her earlier in the year, go and listen, because actually it kind of gives you the hope and the belief that when things aren't going to plan and just it feels like the whole world's against you and it's all just going wrong, that if you just keep grinding away and keep working hard, that actually the tide will turn, and the tide has absolutely turned for her. So that was one of my highlights. Now, listeners, the British team took the SAP Cup, as I say, for the 4th time in the event's history. Germany have dominated it previously, but Brits have now won 3 of the last 4. Led by Laura Collett and Dacapo, Emily King, Valmy Biatz, Kirsty Chabert Classic, I think, who ended up finishing in 19th. They scored a 34.3 in the dressage, which left them a little bit off the pace. They had a stop and a rail in the jumping characteristic, and then a fast cross-country round. I think Kirsty would have gone expecting to be competitive and would be frustrated. However, what I would say is it goes back to when you've got a team competition, that actually sometimes, even if personally it doesn't all go to plan for you, you can deliver something great for the team. And that's what she did here. That was a great third counting score, and it secured the SAP Cup win for the British team. Izzy Taylor, SBH Big Wall, he went quite green on her very early on. She had 2 early problems. I think she'd had 2 refusals by fence 6, the Rolex Water, and she really nursed him round, and he finished a horse looking really happy, really confident with his job. And while Aachen wasn't their weekend, don't be surprised to see them come back in the future, and it will be their weekend. He looks really, really smart for the future, only a 9-year-old. So he'll have learnt lots, I'm absolutely sure. Right, now though, let's go and hear from the lady who led the British team to that SAP Cup victory this weekend. It was girl power for the Brits, taking the tops in the SAP Cup, and best of those Brits finishing in the individual bronze medal position. Laura Collett, how are you, first of all? Fresh off the back of a trip to Aachen, and you're already straight back to it.
Yeah, no, it's good to be back. We've been away for a couple of weeks, so but great trip, and Aachen lived up to all expectations.
As a rider, you've ridden Aachen a good few times in your career now. As a rider, what sets it apart for you? What makes it so special?
Gosh, it's just like no other show on the world that we get to go to as eventers. There's so much going on. The crowds are amazing, and then just being in and around all the insane show jumping and dressage riders, and seeing the horses, you're like in the warm up with them, and it's just one of those places that has such a special buzz to it and feel to it. And then I guess the cross country is so intense, and it's always comes down to the time, and it's what causes people to make mistakes, really.
There is something very, very special about it. And it always kind of goes through to the results as well, because the drama that unfolds on the leaderboard is something else. First of all, your kind of thoughts going into it this weekend with Dacapo. He's been there before. You know he loves it. What was your goal?
Yeah, look, it's been kind of a long plan in the making. He's a tricky character in the respect that he has certain places that he likes, and you can't make him go around a course that he doesn't like. So we've tried very hard in the last couple of years to play by his rules. So we decided that he would miss a spring 3-day to try and go to Aachen and get a good result there, because we know he likes it there. So that's kind of been the plan all along, was to go and try and get a good result at Aachen, because it's a cracking show, and yes, it's a short format, but it's so prestigious that it's great to go and get a good result because you're on the world stage.
I tell you what, if his two favourite shows in the world are Aachen and Buccolo, Laura,
I'm not complaining.
Things aren't too bad.
Yeah,
you could live with that. Exactly. Talk us through the beginning of the week for you then, first of all. How pleased were you with your first phase?
Yeah, I was actually chuffed with his dressage. I was a little bit disappointed with Mark. The last halt wasn't great, but apart from that, I thought he was pretty bang on. He was very flowing, very forward to the contact, and it was actually really nice to ride. So really pleased with him. A little bit disappointed with the marking, but we're well aware that sometimes when we go to Germany and take on those big flashy young horses, that sometimes we don't get the marks that we can sometimes get at home. So that's part and parcel of going to Aachen with the whole German Olympic team there.
And a clear round in the stadium as well, which looks, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it looks to be absolutely enormous. How much do you have to adapt your kind of normal show jumping style to get the best results in a stadium that size?
It is enormous. I'm very lucky that, particularly with Dacapo, that he rises to the occasion. I love it in there. And the kind of more forward I ride, the more daring I am, the better he jumps. So it really suits him, because sometimes you can get a bit lost in that arena and end up picking up unnecessary time faults, but he absolutely loves it, and I thought he jumped a brilliant round. And the show jumping track this year I thought was slightly softer than it sometimes is there. It was very flowing and very nice to the horses, so I probably could have been a bit tougher, because he might have moved up the leaderboard a little bit more, but it's an insane arena to ride in.
So going into the cross country then, what was the feeling like in the team camp? Because one of the unique things about Aachen is the SAP Cup. The British team had led the dressage. You were in the lead after the show jumping as well, but it was pretty tight on that leaderboard. So how much of it is team first at a venue like Aachen compared to individual performance as well?
Yeah, I think we were, we were lucky. We were in the lead. It was all very, very close. But I think we're all very aware at Aachen that the time is, plays such a big factor to the end result that you might be in the lead, but you kind of would want a lot more in hand than we had. We were very much on kind of different types of horses. Kirsty's obviously been to Aachen several times before, so she knows her horse suits that kind of track. Emily had never been before, but her horse is obviously very experienced. And then Izzy was on a really young horse. So I think we were all there to obviously do the best that we could on the, with the horses that we had, and was very much just trying to go in, obviously first things first, try and jump a clear round, but then also go as fast as we could, really. And I think the way it plays out, unless you're good at maths like you are, Nicole, it's quite hard to keep track of what's actually going on with everybody, and it all happens so quickly. And doing it in the reverse order of teams and however they figure it out, it actually makes it quite difficult to follow. So we kind of just got our heads down and just said we're going to go and do the best we can and see what the end result is, really.
There was a lot of frantic mental maths going from my perspective. I'm not going to lie. So your cross country round, he looked, I mean, we talk about it earlier on in the preview show, because he looked like you've already said he loves Aachen, but he had the biggest smile on his face all week, and particularly cross country. What was your round like, and how did it feel?
Yeah, he's he kind of knows what he wants and he gets what he wants, and it's kind of a good way to be, really, isn't it? Because he's told me for several years that he doesn't want to be a 5-star horse, and finally I've accepted that, and he's now picks and chooses where he wants to go. And he went out the start box and he genuinely gave me one of the best cross-country rides I've probably ever had on any horse. Particularly was definitely the best round I've had on him. He was travelling, he was going, he was so on it, looking for every fence, and every time the crowd cheered, he sort of thought, oh, fantastic, I'm so clever, aren't I? And he literally never stopped pricking his ears and looking. And I think my favourite was him tossing out of the arena, thinking that all those thousands of people had arrived at Aachen solely just to see him, which is really cute, because he's he is a funny character, and but when he goes and does performances like that, you can't not love him, really.
No, not at all. He knows what he likes. We should all be more Dacapo, to be quite honest.
Exactly.
we should all channel his kind of methods, and we'll go far in life. What is the feeling like coming into the main arena? Because it always gives us the impression of this kind of wall of sound. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, most definitely. You can hear the crowds like the whole way round the cross country. But as you come up, because it's obviously very strange coming up through the trade stand area just before you then do quite a tight turn into the entrance into the main arena, and the noise that sort of hits you as you do open up into the main arena is incredible. And then everything happens in the main arena quite quickly, and you're always down on the clock, so you're chasing but without wanting to make a silly mistake right towards the end. So it's a very unique experience.
And what about after your round? Because you had obviously put yourself in a great individual position. You'd gone into, I think, third at this stage. You've still, as a team, got Emily King to go. So were you able to kind of get an idea of any of the scores, or is it simply a case of kind of everything does happen so quickly?
Yeah, I think we were aware that basically we needed Emily to go really well. We didn't actually know like how fast she needed to go, or there were still the last few riders to go. So we were watching those, and actually a lot of them had problems. So then it was like, we had no idea who was maybe lying close to us and what the distance was, but we were just aware that we needed her to go and do a good job.
She absolutely did. The team secured the win. It was the fourth SAP Cup that Team GB have won, but you've won actually 3 of the last 4 runnings, which is pretty impressive. Prize giving in the main arena, what is that like?
Well, if you ask Dacapo, apparently it's quite exciting. He's done it once before and was absolutely fine and thought it was brilliant and great, and he went in this time and he slightly embarrassed himself, I think it's safe to say. And he definitely embarrassed me because I fully got run away with going round the lap of honour. And I was sort of looked at Calvin as I was upside him and I said, do you ever get the feeling that you're being run away with? And he was like, yeah, 100%. I think ours were both set in a bit of a race, and it was definitely embarrassing. But at the same time, it's the noise and the crowd. By that stage, everyone had come off the cross country course into the grandstand, and it's just it is just the most amazing feeling, being a part of it, and enjoying. I probably didn't quite enjoy it as much as I would have liked to, because I was fully both hands on the reins trying to gain some sort of control and dodge, because you obviously got all the show jumps and all the obstacles and a lot of people. I was very worried I was going to flatten some people as well. So yeah, it's basically total carnage, but great fun.
He looked like he loved every single second. And as for you, Laura, you just smiled your way through it. Nobody would have known.
Best way.
Can I ask as well, because your head girl, Tilly Hughes, who's been a massive part of your success over the last few years, absolutely adores Dacapo. She does a lot of the work on him at home and everything else. What does it mean to her and actually her involvement in his performance this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's totally down to her, because I genuinely don't ride that horse at home. I mean, I've been away for the last kind of 10 days leading up to it, so I really genuinely haven't even seen him. She's been doing everything with him, as she always does. She schools him, she gallops him, she hacks him, she absolutely adores him. And, you know, it's so nice to be able to kind of repay her for everything that she's done with him. And he loves her as well, and he knows that she's obsessed with him, and he kind of plays on that, and we all have such a laugh and a joke about it, because he's an absolute nightmare, really. He's such a spoiled brat. Like, he can't be, all the other horses get tied in the wash bays on the cross ties, and he refuses, so he has to be tacked up in his stable. And, you know, he has all these little things that I'm so adamant, no, he will do as he's told, and he proves to me time and time again that he really won't, and actually it's just safer and easier for everybody if we just play by his rules. And yeah, it's just really special to be able to go to a show like Aachen, and for him to go and perform and kind of and have his moment as well, because I've had him since he was 5, and he's grown up in London's shadow basically the whole way through. They stepped up to 4-star together, and you know, he was third at the 8-9-year-old championships at Blenheim, which for any horse is really special. But then London won it at the same year, so it was like, you know, kind of forgot about him. And so it's so lovely for his owners, who are, you know, so supportive, to be able to go away with just him and the whole week be just about him on the world stage, and for him to go and have a performance like that and look like he thoroughly enjoyed every second, which he did, and come home and think he's won the Olympics. In his eyes, he's just been to his Olympics and he's won it, so everyone's happy.
Jolly nice time in the prize giving, trying to eat flowers and run away with you.
He bit Philip Searle in the prize giving, and he totally disgraced himself.
He looked very happy while doing it, though. Silent assassin.
Oh, delighted with it. Delighted.
What will he do for the rest of the season now?
He will think he's wonderful for a few weeks, and then he'll go and have a little play around an open intermediate, because he likes doing that. And then he'll go to Buccalo and hopefully have a fabulous time and love every second and try and win Buccalo. So I think he's been top 5 a few times now, so it's about time that we got the win there.
We'll watch this space for him over the next few weeks. I have to ask, Laura, obviously big few weeks for you guys coming up. How is everything going at home in terms of preparations for Paris?
Touch wood, all good. It's kind of seems like it's very close, but also very far away at the same time. With horses, these last few weeks are just utter hell, if I'm totally honest with you. A lot of bubble wrap, a lot of cotton wool and everything else, trying to just keep him in one piece and keep me in one piece, and try to rock up there in the best possible form.
And he's all recovered back on track after his slight blip coming out of Le Moulin?
Yeah, that seems, again, touch wood, that all seems to be recovered, and he's back studio doing full work, galloping and schooling and jumping, and actually going to take him to a show jumping show on Friday just to go and jump a couple of bigger rounds on a surface because we didn't get to do that in Lemoulen. So go and do that, and hopefully, everything's on track at the moment.
Well, look, enjoy the final preparations as well. I know that sounds a ridiculous thing to say because I'm sure enjoyment is the last thing on your minds at the moment. But it's not often you get the chance to build up to an Olympic Games. So, Laura, best of luck to you all, thinking of you all, and well done on a brilliant week in Aachen.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, lovely, Laura. Always love having her on the show. She's very, very generous with her time and gives us a great insight. Dacapo sounds like such a character. But do you know what? He's found his calling in life and he absolutely loves it. I didn't know she was being run away with in the prize giving.
She's very good at hiding it, isn't she?
Yeah.
I would have been probably showing a lot more fear on my face than Laura.
She's
She looked
smiling,
very
Rosie.
elegant, smiling through it. I love that we've all got to be a bit more like Dacapo. He knows what he wants when he wants, and he gets it.
Makes it happen. Exactly. I think my children are like that. They're obviously channeling their in Dacapo. Look, brilliant weekend for her. Obviously great to hear London 52 is in super order as well, coming up for the next few weeks. Listeners, CHIO Aachen for another year is done and dusted. But as we've alluded to in this show, lots coming your way. We've got the likes of Chris Burton, Austin O'Connor's going to be on the show with the Red Mill special. And it's been a little while coming because it's taken us a while to pull them together, which I will point the finger firmly at myself for that one. But the next of the Olympic specials is on the horizon, and you're going to have not one, but two coming your way very, very quickly. 2 parts for both of them because, again, there was too much to fit into one episode, so we've broken it down. Athens, first of all, the drama, the roller coaster of the Athens Olympic Games. Then we have got the story of London. So they will be coming in your podcast applications very, very soon. And let's just say there's no better way to get into the Olympic spirit. They will certainly light your Olympic fire. Right, Rosie, for us though, that is all we've got time for on the CHIO Aachen show. Big thank you to you guys for listening as always. And we'll be back very soon with more.
Hello, I'm Cameron Beer, and my favourite Cardet & Martin product, or products I should say, is definitely their hoof range. They have got an amazing, extensive range of products. You have to go onto their website and look. They've got a product for every type of condition for your horse's hooves. But as they say, no hoof, no horse. And my favourite product is the Corner Crescent Original Hoof Ointment. By using that product, I really know that my horses that have perhaps quite weak hooves or go a little bit flaky in the summer, I'm doing my best and the hooves are really holding up to the work so much better. So the Corner Crescent Original Hoof Ointment is definitely a go-to.